The Western Balkans in southern Europe is home to historical towns and cities, coastlines and mountains, rich natural resources and fertile agricultural lands. The Western Balkans have long been a meeting place of East and West, a region where customs and traditions play a dominant role, particularly with issues related to gender and land. The 6 participants in the region, Albania, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Kosovo, the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia, Montenegro and Serbia, recently came together in Durrës, Albania, for the second World Bank FAO Land and Gender Conference. The voluntary guidelines on the responsible governance of tenure of land, fisheries and forests in the context of national food security were endorsed in 2012. The guidelines include principles of implementation relevant to gender equity and equality. Participants at the conference discussed concerns about low levels of female property ownership throughout the region and what they could do to change those figures.
One of the findings from last year at the conference is that we don't actually have enough data, because when we talk to officials, officials say, the laws are clear, everything's fine, we're in Europe, we don't have a problem. So our second step over the past year was to actually find out what is the situation with women's registration, what percentage of women are registered as owners. So we started an analysis of all the cadastre office information, gender disaggregated reports, and we were surprised to find that female ownership, property ownership, can be as low as 3%.
You always find that the officials are surprised when they hear the data, because everybody tells them everything's fine. Every country you go to, every country of this region we went to, we said, you know, what about your equal rights for women? And the answer was, we don't have a problem. Everything's fine, because the law is fine. But it's then when they hear the actual figures, then the surprise comes in, and then they say, oh well, maybe we should do something about this. So it's the first step. You've got to get the data.
As we know, in the Western Balkans, women tend to not own land and property. So it is clear that we would have to see what the practice is when land or property is being sold or bought at the notary's office. So the legal framework is pretty well defined in all the Western Balkan countries, but now what is the practice?
This past year, the 6 participants' projects concentrated on gathering gender disaggregated data for female property ownership in the Western Balkans. The results illustrate large discrepancies between urban and rural areas.
The average which you get nationwide, it's a little bit misleading, because you have in every of this country, or in every country, you have several big cities where they're more developed, people are registering on both names, and it's completely different statistic. They differ too much between the rural isolated areas and the big cities. If you take the big cities out, then the average statistic is completely different. And we managed to demonstrate in the innovation project, we did the national level, but we pick up the capital city and we pick up one of the rural municipalities just to show the difference. It's really, you cannot compare. One is 36% and the other is 3 or 10%.
With legal frameworks already in place and new data and statistics in hand, country teams went about devising ways to change attitudes regarding joint property registration and inheritance customs that favoured male heirs in select pilot projects.
There are strong stereotypes, especially in south of Serbia, regarding property rights implementation, and women who are registered their properties on their own name. Usually it is on their husband or any male member of the family, and also there are stereotypes about inheritance, because usually the inheritance is gifted or the inheritance is on male name and not women. It makes women more vulnerable and with less power in situations or all family situations, also in their lives, enabling them to get credits, to get finances and be more secure economically.
For years we've been focusing on making a change in Albanian society. Let's say that since we're trying to implement all these human rights principles in Albania, so women's access to property rights is one of the key criteria and our focus in work with the government.
In the past, Macedonia had talks about the registration of property in the names of women, but we never had any activities to verify actual percentages. Because of this, we did not have any idea how to change or improve the situation. In this project, the Minister of Social Policy in the National Cadastre Office obtained real data for women owning property in Macedonia, and we were surprised that this percentage was quite low.
Statistics illustrate that the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia had one of the lowest rates of female property ownership in the region, only 16%. 3 communities were selected to serve as pilot projects to reverse this trend. Zelenikovo is one of those communities, only 25 kilometers south of the Macedonian capital of Skopje. This agricultural community is home to 4,000 residents, with an ethnic mix of Macedonians, ethnic Albanians, Bosnians and Serbians, and Roma. As part of the pilot project, Zelenikovo began hosting open days. Notaries attend, explaining women's property rights and offering free legal advice. Local public officials, NGOs and women's organisations also take part in these workshops. Currently, female property ownership stands at 16%, but the goals for the success of this project are more ambitious.
I would be very satisfied after this project, maybe in 5 or 10 years, to increase the percentage of women that has been registered in the real estate cadastre of over than 40%. So it's our target, and I think we're working in the right direction to achieve this target.
I have seen through my experience with the clients in this office that the biggest reason women do not register property comes from past traditions. This is not just in Macedonia, but throughout the region. We've heard the experiences of other countries in the region, from Montenegro, from Bosnia, from other countries where women have also been taught to stay at home and work at home. Women have been taught that male children will inherit the property instead of female children. But we're arriving at a new age where all of this will change and the situation will be more equitable than in the past.
Neighbouring Kosovo has similar experiences. In selecting a pilot project community, Pristina was originally identified, but plans were quickly shifted to the town of Shtim when it was discovered that gender sensitivity programs were already underway. At the beginning of this project, the head of Shtim's Cadastre office invited journalists to join him and his wife as they registered their property jointly. He and the Shtim mayor encouraged town residents to do the same. But customs and traditions are not the only impediments to registering women on property deeds. Sometimes financial factors can dissuade husbands from co-registering their wives on land deeds. Immediately after the workshop, there was a discussion with the mayor about economic disincentives. According to the old regulations, people registering property paid €20, while co-registering cost €40. A decision was made to implement a flat rate of €20, regardless of the number of owners registered. Between February and March 2014, the mayor waived the registration fee outright, resulting in an extraordinary outcome. More than 20% of properties were registered to women during that period.
I'm so happy my husband took this step to officially register our joint ownership together.
The projects already undertaken in the Western Balkans are not only useful locally, but may also assist other regions addressing the same challenges.
This is a good model where many countries listen much more acutely to their neighbours than they do to some foreign consultant from a country that hasn't had the same problems they've had. So using this South-South exchange mechanism is actually very, very good. So long as the country can relate, you know, it needs to be a country that has some sort of similar history, some sort of similar problems that they've faced. But it is a very, very good model, and I think, you know, the people here have been, as I said earlier, they've been innovative, they've been thinking, they've come up with ideas, and they've started implementing them. Now, those same people, in fact, the individuals, would be ideal for going to other countries and saying, look, this is what we've done. Now come, you know, what can you do in your country? And I think in a regional perspective that's good, because when you come to the Caucasus, for example, 3 countries, they're all very similar. You can get the three of them working together. They compete against each other. You know, one says, "Oh, we did this," and the other says, "We did that." You know, it's a great model.